We're going to go back to sort of branding for a little bit now. So over to you, Mark.
Hi everybody, and thank you for that, Paul, that last piece. Having the photo of the BBC News item where the kid ran in brought back some bad memories from when I was once doing a piece to BBC News, and I was pretending to be somewhere where I wasn't. I was actually at the in-laws house, and the camera was balanced very delicately on a couple of chairs that were stacked up, and if it fell, it would have been a very embarrassing piece that people rather messy room I was sat in. But fortunately, that didn't happen. So, hello everybody. I'm Mark from the Brand Strategy, where we focus on delivering long-term sustainable business, helping add value for customers and the brand. I'm also, as I think mentioned earlier, a lecturer in marketing and leadership at Nottingham Business School as well. So a few of us have got links back to NTU, which is nice. So I think if we look at this situation it's really like nothing ever before, is it? But what we can do is start to look at comparables to try and gain insight for what might happen. So as somebody said, we can't predict the future. None of us are Mystic Meg, but what we can do is look at the past and try and learn lessons from the past. And one of the things that is probably most relevant is the recession around 2008. If you compare the effect on the stock market, you can almost map the two on top of each other. It's very similar, albeit obviously consumers are behaving in very different ways at the moment in this unprecedented crisis. So at the time of the recession in 2008, a lot of analysis was done on the best way for businesses to behave. And ultimately, which ones then came out on top were then reflected on. The summary of all that research was that almost counterintuitively, now is actually not the best time to cut back. That the strongest businesses were actually those that invested in brand strategy, they protected their marketing budgets, and started to research new customer behaviours. Because don't be fooled that when all this is over, that will all return to normal, because normal won't exist anymore. It will be a new normal. Consumers will be conditioned to new behaviours. So very simplistically, if we think, how many people have suddenly started using online food services that wouldn't have before? So getting their food delivered. How many people have realised that actually cooking at home isn't that hard, and you can create some decent food and some decent meals without having to go out to a restaurant. So that will start to have an impact on consumer behaviour. How many people are using this type of technology? So what impact will that have on train company, and so on and so forth? So it's given people a real opportunity to start to look at things differently. So now is really a time to research customers and think about the new behaviours and wants that they will be demonstrating. And with that, to then look at you as a business and reconsider your product or service portfolio, and most importantly, to then emphasise what your core values are as a business. So let's recognise that actually pre this crisis, fairly recent research actually showed that 81% of brands could disappear and no one would care. So consumers are really not going to be very forgiving of the brands that get it wrong during these times. We see so much of them already. And part of that reason that we were getting to that point pre-crisis is the track and react culture, as I call it, where much of marketing has found itself in, where a lot of people in marketing focus on immediate responses to messaging. We can track everything that happens on social media or websites and see what then happens to it. So the industry is obsessed with change, and not necessarily consistent brand building. And as we know, an obsession could be good, but it's not necessarily a great thing. So yet here we face a scenario for many businesses where there isn't that immediate reaction, as customers can't go out for many things and just buy the products or services. They don't have that instant click to buy them like they used to. And this is leaving a lot of marketing executives quite confused on what to do next. And arguably, this could be the reason why ad revenues are down on Facebook and Twitter, when actually, as Victoria said earlier, those platforms have got more eyeballs on them than ever before, because people are all at home, they're looking at those platforms, but the brands just don't know what to say. And yes, there is an element of respect and backing off during these crisis times, but all of the brands that were focused on buy it now, click here, buy this, buy now, they're struggling because they haven't got that ability to then fulfill that through. So what an opportunity now for brand building. So effective leadership is going to be really critical at this point, and yourselves as leaders in your own businesses should be considering the impact your brand can have on the communities that you operate in. As a parallel at Harvard Business School, they came out recently and spoke about it and said to move on from this crisis mode, brands and business leaders need to start thinking outside of the building. So what's happening in the outside world around you, understand it and adapt. So understand, adapt. As examples, we've all seen good and bad examples of this practice already starting to kick into place. The Belfast branch of Iceland supermarkets that started opening for the first hour exclusively for those in need, which obviously then spread across all of their chain and is being replicated across most of the market by other operators. Interestingly, I've seen a lot of people saying that they thought that was Sainsbury's that started that, but it was actually Iceland. I think it's interesting to then think, well, how will that start to change consumer behaviours? Is that something that might continue, for example, or maybe continue but with a slightly different theme? So, the retailers have proven they can do it, so maybe opening exclusively for those that need it going forwards. So while it's been trialled in many places, they might start to do things like opening for families with children with autism for an hour once a week, or things like that maybe they hadn't been brave enough to try, and this is giving them the opportunity, like Matt said, to innovate. And obviously we've also seen the examples of worse behaviour, and I'm not going to dwell on those because we can all go to the Daily Mail and read about Wetherspoon and all the others that have maybe done not so great things. Another in-depth study after the 2008 downturn categorised 9 different types of business response in how the brands dealt with the situation. And don't worry, I'm not going to go through all 9, just the top one. So recognising that of those 9 different responses that businesses had, and this was looking back at the downturn, so they had the data, they had the information there, they found the optimum was those that cut costs by improving operational efficiencies and not the ones that were slashing employee numbers. And also a thing that stood out about these businesses was that they were the ones that were investing in research and development, in marketing, and also in their capacities. So things such as buying plant, machinery, bringing new people into the business. And that approach actually showed through ongoing positive stock market experience for much longer after the recession. It wasn't an immediate effect only, it continued on for many years. Much better than the other 8 categories that they identified. And one of the things that stands out with a lot of these businesses is something called meaningful difference, which some of you will have come across, and understanding what their meaningful difference was in the community they operated in, very similar to what Matt was saying earlier. So it's key at this point to understand, what can you as a business contribute to the communities you operate in that no other business can? And it's proven with quite a bit of data that businesses that look at that and consider that as part of their long-term focus are able to deliver, quote from the research, very, very large profit growth over the long term, and much more so than those that are relying on short-term tactics. So if I come to summarise those 4 points, the 4 things that I boil it down to are, as leaders in a crisis, the first thing that we must do is to address the short-term needs. So we're all doing that at the moment, aren't we? So address the short-term needs to ensure business survival. And that can be things like making sure people are kitted out with the cloud software that we've just seen there from Paul, making sure that people are comfortable, that consumers know how to get hold of things, and so on and so forth. So that immediate term actions. The second point is to start to put money, or not necessarily, wrong way, start to put investment, which could be time investment, into consumer or customer research. and market analysis. Understand what customers are wanting, understand what the market is doing, and try and get it done before competitors are, and try and define that potential future space for your brand in what is the new normal. The third point is to invest in brand strategy to define what the optimum brand positioning is, because if you've looked at who the customers are and what they want, you've understood what's happening in the market and the market analysis, the next step is to make sure that your brand is relevant and that you're positioned well in that space. And then the fourth and final point in this summary is to keep a balanced approach. So very difficult at this time to keep a balance between long and short-term actions, but try to keep the two going. And I think someone earlier, it might have been Matt, suggested bringing together a team specifically focused on future, on looking at innovation. And I think that's a great idea and a great way of doing it. Now, some businesses might not be big enough to do that. Other businesses might be being savvy and saying, well, look, we've got this time where we're not trading. Let's use it to look to the future. So the final comment from me is around timing. So I've spoken to a lot of business leaders over the last week who have kind of said to me, okay, all that is great, but actually we're still in crisis panic mode. We're still trying to make sure that all of the team can just log on to Microsoft Teams. We're still trying to get, email conversations with everybody. We're still trying to get things up and running. We're still trying to work out the logistics to make sure that the wheels don't fall off. So to which I've said to them, well, actually, realistically, this situation is going to go on for weeks or more than likely months. And consumers and workers will start to adapt to this almost interim new normal. What we're doing now will almost become how we expect things. There's lots of theories of change that won't go into it, and we're kind of going through the storming process at the moment. But what we'll get to is actually this will become normal for us, and we'll start to accept it and adapt, because as humans we're obviously very good at adapting to things. So start to get the strategy hats on as soon as possible. If you have got the luxury of people that can do that specifically, great. If you've got the time available, try, and I find this difficult, so I understand it, but try and switch off BBC News and the constant barrage of updates and memes, and try and think about the strategic future while you've got this luxury of time, if your business allows you to. And definitely try and get there before your competitors do. If you want to know any more about anything I've said, a bit more depth, or any of the links to the sources I've mentioned, all of the links to the sources I've mentioned are on the website, which is thebrandstrategy.co.uk, and it's in the blog. So thebrandstrategy.co.uk/blog, and all the links to any of the sources I've referred to there are all in there. I'd also, it came out today, after I'd decided kind of the detail of what I wanted to cover. But Marketing Week, if any of you are subscribers of Marketing Week, have done a really good piece today on a similar topic about long term. So that's worth looking at as well. Okay. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mark. You raised so many valid points there that I don't know where to start with it really, but you've also written an article recently which you sent me, didn't you? So where can people find that article? Is that on your blog as well?
It is, yeah. So that's at thebrandstrategy.co.uk/blog. Yeah.
Great, and we can probably post that on the members group of LinkedIn as well for people to read, because that's your most recent one, isn't it, about covering?
It is, yes. I feel like I need to do some more. It's one of those things that you kind of think you should do, and actually the reason that came about was helping people.
Yeah.
So I was actually writing for a charity that I am a trustee of. I was actually writing some guidance for our chief executive on how to cope, and I thought, well, I'll do my research and do it properly. And as I wrote it, I thought, do you know what, I should share this with anyone that wants it. So that's where that came.
Thank you. No, that's really great. And I think I really sort of what resonates with me and what stands out with what you've said to me is the new normal. You know, we're not going to go back to normal. Nothing will be the same again after this, but we as humans, as you quite rightly said, are adaptable naturally. We have to. And so it's interesting to see what the new normal will be when we come out of this, and how all of the things that we're learning about now and we're just gradually getting on board with, as in the online stuff and the remote stuff and the new stuff that we've adapted our business towards, it will go hand in hand, because we'll be able to at some point probably go back to the way we were, you know, to some respect. You know, RSViP will bring its events back, but we'll also have the online stuff now as well. So we'll be able to carry on with that and integrate that into the membership probably, you know. So I'm already thinking ahead as to when we do go back to bringing the events, how we can integrate, you know, Zoom and all the remote stuff that we'll kind of be hopefully up on by that point and and a bit more used to. You know, at the moment we're using it because it's, as you rightly said, we're in panic mode, and we're doing it because it's an alternative to, you know, and it's something that we're doing, and it's the only real fallback that we can do. However, it will be an accompaniment to our events eventually as well, I think, and to our offering, and as it will be with many other businesses. So if anything, as a silver lining to what we're going through right now, I think, you know, it's interesting, isn't it, to see all the new, we're educating ourselves right now really in business, and all the new things that we have learned now that we'll be able to use going forward. It will become our new normal.
It will, and industries, like I say, like the travel industry, I think will be hit in the new normal, because I think video conferencing has been around for a long time, and people just haven't embraced it, and for various reasons, and made excuses why. And actually now many people have been forced to and accepted it and understand it, and have had to take that learning curve. So how many trips will we not be doing now from Nottingham to London because of technology? And you know, that will have an impact on the travel industry and others. So.
Fiona, quickly?
Yes, sure, Nikki.
Just to say, Mark, that was brilliant. I would love to talk to you about travel industry, because that's where my focus is. That's who I work with. I work with hoteliers. I work with travel brands. So I would love to talk with you more.
Oh, excellent. And I'm previously Forest Holidays and just finished a big piece of work for Butlin. So
Wonderful.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, thanks again, Mark, for joining us and sharing your expertise tonight. It was really, really interesting. Thank you.